Alright, so today's 5.3, dividing polynomials, long division. So before we get into any long division, we're just going to practice basic polynomial division where we're dividing by a monomial. Monomial means single term. So let's go ahead and look at these first. So if we want to divide any particular polynomial by a single term monomial, all we have to do is divide each term by that monomial. So how many times does 3 go into 6?
Twice.
Good. And then with the x's, you're going to subtract the exponents. You remember that? So it's going to be x to the second, and that's going to be minus 5x, right? Just regular 5x because of the subtraction of the exponents. And then the last one's just going to be plus 1, because anytime you divide something by itself, it's just going to be a 1. Yes?
Why is it 6x?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I said 2, but I think I wrote 6, so I apologize. It should be a 2. Sorry about that. I don't know why I put a 6 there.
So you just divide it?
Exactly. So like I divided this by this, and so on. Okay. All right. Next one is going to be 3 a to the 4th b squared minus 2 a squared b. And then the last one is going to be plus 9a. What's going to happen with the b's on the last one? Cancel out. So there's no b in that last term. So that's how you divide monomials. So today's lesson, we're going to be doing long division. So I'm going to kind of refresh your memory about long division. And this is one of those situations where in the lesson there's a lot I have to explain. It's going to take me some time. So please just be patient. Okay, and then if at the end of my explanation, if there's anything you're still confused about, just let me know and I can clarify it. Okay, so let's look at it. So main thing you need to know about long division is it works very similarly to numerical division. So here's the terminology that we use. The divisor is what you divide by, the dividend is what you divide into, and the quotient is what you get as a result of that division. So before we get into any math problems right now, you guys don't have to write this down. It's just something we're going to think our way through for a second. So let's say we wanted to divide 3 into 56, right? What would be step 1 of doing that? We'd see how many times 3 goes into, which would be how many times? So we'd write the 1 up here, and then what would we do? Well, first you would multiply the 1 by the 3, right? So that's why it's so important. As we go through these steps, we're going to be doing it with polynomials. So if you were to explain this to somebody else, you wouldn't say, oh, I got to subtract 3. They'd be like, where'd the 3 come from? You have to explain. We have to multiply the 1 times the 3. We put the 3 down here, and then we do what? You get a 2 by doing subtraction. And then you bring down the 6. And then how many times does 3 go into 26? 8. And then you multiply the 8 times the 3. And you get 24. And then you subtract. Does 3 go into 2? No. So that's our remainder. So you can typically write your remainder over your divisor to write it as a mixed number. Do you guys remember doing that? So the steps are going to be very similar to that, but with polynomials. Okay? So the most important thing, other than the terminology, you can use this as a guide to go back to it if you ever get stuck, is you have to put in placeholder terms. You have to write it in descending order. And you have to make sure that you are subtracting every time. Okay, not adding or anything like that. You always subtract, and you subtract each term, not just the 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice our long division using polynomial long division. So step 1. First thing you do is you figure out, you look at this and you make sure they're both in standard form, descending degree order. Are both of these expressions in descending degree order? Yes. So we can move on to next step. We always want to determine, look at the first term of the divisor. What would you multiply this first term by to get it to be the first term of the dividend? X. Just x, right? If I multiply x by 4x, that's going to get me 4x squared. So you're going to write the x on the top. What you multiply it by to get to this, you write that up here. Now, the reason I write it here is because I want it to line up with its common exponent term. You see that? So I'm not going to write it over here. I'm going to write it over here, where it lines up with its common term. Now, once you figure that out, you're then going to multiply that by this, and that's going to get written right here. Okay? So, what is x times 4x plus 3? Good. 4x squared plus 3x. Now you have to subtract this away. Now, when I tell you, this is probably the most common mistake I've ever seen in Algebra 2 that people make. Is it okay if I were going to subtract this away to just put the negative right here? No, what do I have to do? Because you're subtracting the entire thing, not just the first term, okay? Now, what's going to always happen is these first terms are always going to cancel out. And then you're going to be left with 23x minus 3x, which is? Then what would you do normally in long division? Bring down the next term, which is negative 16. Now, same procedure applies for the next step. What would I multiply 4x by to get it to be 20x? That's what goes here. So then you multiply the 5 times this, and that's what you write right here. So what is 5 times 4x plus 3? Good, 20x plus 15. And then remember, you have to subtract this whole entire thing. So the 20x's are going to cancel. What is negative 16 minus 15?
Negative 31.
Negative 31. Now this is your remainder. So here's how you write your final answer as this is what we call the quotient. You write whatever you get here plus your remainder over your divisor. Just like you do with regular long division. So I'll zoom out so you can fill out the little lines there. Your quotient is what you get as the result of the division. And you're going to write that in. The remainder was negative 31. The divisor is what you divided by. And the dividend is what you divided into. Now you do need to know these terms separately and what they mean. You should be able to identify them in the process, okay? So does anybody have any questions about number 1? We're going to do a bunch more practice problems, so plenty of time to get it all organized in your mind. All right, the next one. Okay, so this one here, to start, you want to make sure everything is in descending degree order, okay? So would you agree that it's in standard form, both of them? Okay. So then you want to figure out what would I multiply x by to get it to become x squared? X. So you're going to write that up here. You're then going to multiply these together, and that's going to be what you get and put right here. So that's going to be what? Just regular x squared minus 3x, right? And our goal is to do what with that? Subtract. The x's are going to cancel. This is going to become what? Positive 10x. And then I'm going to bring down the negative 30. You don't have to put the plus sign in front, but you can if you want. What would I multiply x by to get to 10x? 10. Then you're going to multiply. That gives you 10x minus 30. And we're going to subtract that. So what is 10x minus 30 minus 10x minus 30? 0. So this is when your remainder is 0. So if my remainder is 0, do I need to add anything to the end of this? No. And let's explain what that means. This actually has an understanding or a reasoning behind it, or a concept that you need to understand. So when you do long division and you get a 0 remainder, that means that not only is your quotient a factor of your polynomial that you're dividing into, your dividend, but as is the divisor. So that means that both x minus 3 and x plus 10 are factors of x squared plus 7x minus 30, which makes sense because if I were to just look at this, right, we would look for factors of negative 30 that add up to 7, and you would say positive 10 and Negative 3. See how those are both factors of that original polynomial. Okay? Division reverses multiplication and vice versa. We just did this a different way. If we were to multiply these back together, we would end up with what we started with. Okay, so I just want to make sure you make that full connection. Yes?
Are those only factors when the remainder is 0?
Yes, good question. Yes, they're only factors when the remainder is 0. Okay, otherwise they're not. Just like with regular long division. So our final answer, our quotient is x plus 10. Our remainder is 0. Our divisor is x minus 3. And our dividend is x squared plus 7x minus 30. I don't know why I wrote 10, but there we go, 30. So any questions about that one? Okay. So another way that they may phrase this question to you is they'll say, is blank a factor of blank? So what that's saying is you have to, this is one of the ways to do this, you would try to divide this by this to see if that's true or not and see if it's a remainder, right? So here's what you're going to do, and here's where things are a little bit different than what you just saw in the last one. We're going to have to set up our own division. Now inside is going to be our dividend, which is, I always say dividend because you divide into, that's the way to remember it. That's 3x to the 4th minus 4x cubed plus 12x squared, but we have a problem. We can't continue here. Let me explain to you why that is. What do you notice happens when we jump from 12x squared to 5? We skip the x, right? You can't skip anything. So you have to put in what we call placeholder terms if you skip anything. So what would be a placeholder for x? 0x. So what you're going to do is you're going to put in what we call a placeholder for x. It's just going to be 0x because that keeps the polynomial to have the same value, but it gives you that x in there that you need. Does that make sense? Okay. We're also going to need a placeholder in our divisor as well, right? What placeholder do we need in the divisor?
0x.
Also 0x. So anytime you skip a power, so if you went from like a 3 to the x, you had to put an x squared, and so on. You got to put in what we call a placeholder. Okay. So now we're ready to do our long division. Everything's in decreasing degree order. So it's the same procedure we did before, but just a little bit more steps. So what would we multiply x squared by to get me to 3x to the 4th? Good. And notice I lined it up with the other x squared term. You're then going to multiply 3x squared by the entire thing. So that's going to become 3x to the 4th plus 0x to the 3rd plus 3x squared. And that's going to be subtracted. So these are going to cancel. This is just going to become negative 4x to the 3rd, because when you subtract 0 from something, it doesn't affect it. And then the last one is going to become 9x to the 2nd. And then what's my next step? Bring the 0x down. So what you're going to notice is whatever you end up here has to have the same number of terms as what's out here. Okay, that's how you know how many to bring down. So what can I multiply x squared by to get me to negative 4x cubed? Negative 4x. You're then going to multiply negative 4x by your divisor, which gives you negative 4x cubed minus 0x squared minus 4x. Yes.
Why did you not bring down the 5?
You only want to bring down, there are exceptions to when you're going to bring down more than one, but the rule is you want to bring down as many to have the same number of terms as your divisor every time. So see how our divisor has 3? That's why I want to have 3 terms here as well. So this is going to cancel. This leaves me with 9x squared minus 4x. And then we can now bring down the 5. So what can we multiply x squared? Yes?
Why isn't the negative on the outside of the, it should be plus 4.
Oh, you're right. I just made the mistake I told you guys not to make. Yep, sorry about that. That changes the sign. Yep, so minus, minus, yes. It should be a plus. Sorry about that. Yeah, be very careful when you do this because it's not a hard concept, but it is easy to make a mistake. So we had to multiply x squared by 4x. Wait. That was still a negative up here though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I changed that. Sorry.
It's the logic of the classic
Every time you try to erase with the highlighter, it looks weird. Okay. Back to where we started then. Okay, I have all the signs right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What would I multiply x squared by to get me to 9x squared? Now you're going to multiply 9 by x squared plus 0x plus 1. That gives you 9x squared plus 0x plus 9. And then you're going to subtract. This cancels. This becomes 4x. And this becomes negative 4. That's what I got last time, so that sounds right. So you can't continue anymore. So if you're wondering when you have to stop, whenever the degree of your what's left here becomes less than the degree here, you know that you're done. So then it's just going to be plus your remainder over your divisor. And when you go to write your divisor, you don't have to put the placeholder in anymore, okay? So your quotient is going to be 3x squared minus 4x plus 9 plus 4x minus 4 all over x squared plus 1. Your remainder is 4x minus 4. Your divisor is what you divided by, which is x squared plus 1. And your dividend is what you divided into, which is 3x to the 4th minus 4x cubed plus 12x squared plus 5. So does anyone have any questions about how we got that? Yes?
How many times are we going to have, a placeholder?
Very often.
Okay.
Yeah, placeholders come up a lot. Alright, you guys ready to try one more? Wait, just kidding. Here's no more. I thought there was one more. I put an extra white page in there. So wait, real quick before you guys get started, I have a bunch of stuff to hand back to you. So firstly, I'm going to hand back to you your original quiz, which was the calculator one. No corrections for that. Then I'm going to hand back to you your quiz that has corrections on it. I'll make the corrections open for a week so you have time to get it done. And then I'll hand out the correction forms. But real quick, before you go about doing, when I hand out the homework, I just want to make sure I address this with everybody real quick. What if I said something like this? Well, I guess I should just put it to the first power. Is this a multiplication or a division problem?
Multiplication.
Yeah, technically it's division, right? Because
How?
what's going to happen with the...
Oh, okay, you split it under.
So now this is your divisor. Okay, so there is a problem set up like that, so you just have to rewrite it. So this is what you're dividing by, is the x minus 2. Yours doesn't have the same numbers as that, but... Yeah.
Minus, well, this is the last thing. Let me see, do you need the other side? You need the other side. I need the, I think simple calculus 9.
Yeah, can you pass this
Did
down?
you get now you have the I told him we're done here. Very sad we have to yeah, he told me I'm just we got I mean especially first one I would take the small
I'm charging it now. There's one on my desk if you want to plug it in, though.
Hey, Frida.
She's so funny.
Here.
So funny. Is this the hour bar?
That's
No.
what my teacher has to do.
Wow.
We did A's and B's. We did not do these G's and H's.
No, but I watched the
Is
final.
it pizza?
No. No, it's chicken.
Ooh, you got a star.
Huh? Did I throw it home? Yeah,
Good
I
job.
took it home for you.
I don't have a star. I'm
Where's
still
Where's
mine?
our
writing.
papers?
I think you should have Johnny have your pen.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
true.
trying to find everybody.
Wait, let me see.
No, someone up there slacking out on
Oh
me.
my, did he talk? Speaking of which,
What?
my
Easy.
sky.
Everybody got it but you.
Oh, I think we need an extra paper for homework.
Did anybody get an extra homework
Oh,
page?
Oh, I didn't
Come
get one.
on.
You
oh.
didn't get one?
I didn't get one.
Is any extras out there?
No.
Alright, here's mine. I swear I thought I gave an extra one.
What
You're
are you
good.
I
You
can
can
have
have
her.
her. Don't worry.
It's like in yours.
You're
In
from
your
the
extra.
from the
This one
wall.
frame.
Go crack open.
Yeah, have you never seen that?
That's not true.
That's so funny.
Wait, what?
Oh wait, is it that
We
like
watched
show
the
on Disney
prank.
Channel?
What?
So you got pranked
That was
into
a
watching.
show.
That was a show?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
I didn't know that.
It was on Disney.
I don't watch
It was
Disney Channel.
back in the day.
I was a
I used to
Nickelodeon
watch.
guy.
I watched
Or not.
everything.
Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network.
That's in the 24 hours.
Scary Godparents. Oh, that's the
Yeah.
other
I
guys.
knew.
Ben 10.
I knew. I knew it wasn't A B C D. I
Tom
guessed.
and Jerry.
At one point, I think it was. I think it was when I got home. I knew one then. I knew the
Wait,
other
how
one.
did we start Amazing World of Gumball? That was like later, but that was good.
That's super good.
I think that.
I don't know. I would watch Disney shows though back in the day. Dude, oh yeah, because you need Jesse.
Dude, I don't. It was this. Dude,
Yeah, I want to punch on his face.
It's so good.
That is so smart.
His name is Funny. The camp one. That was that. That's so weird. Well, everybody else watched it. It was like at the end.
It's your
After
point.
that, it was his dad.
It's 3a squared b minus 2a
Gravity Falls.
right?
Dude,
Child simple function. I watched that.
Never seen Gravity Falls. You didn't even know the theme song. You're so fucking. Oh, bro.
I have
This is why I said problem in chemistry.
3A squared minus 2AB.
No,
Shut
it's
up.
3a squared b minus
Yeah, you're right.
2ab squared.
Yes.
Alright.
Stuff a certain way.
It's just like a contradiction.
Great, you hate your math.
Anna, can you pass this
Alright,
down?
now what do we do?
Oh, I just did that.
That's all we have to do?
Yep.
Or does that make sense though?
Yeah, and he said you
Oh,
have to.
Exactly.
look, he's doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, this is this one.
How do you know that?
Wait.
Look at that, Ethan. That's great.
Got the weak point.
Oh, you should have got one too.
Oh, me?
Exactly. Where's my sweet spot?
Oh no, no. This is dividing by
Oh, you silly Peter.
the next one. Dividing by good job, Peter. Do the whole
Bro,
backstory.
it makes sense.
I cannot blame you. Shut up.
Oh my.
Silly. You're racist.
Ow.
Oh,
What's my
it
answer?
wasn't
Oh.
0.5.
What I get? I got minus 25, but oh, I think it's oh, yeah. Alright.
You have a star.
Oh, I got a star too. Let's
Your
go.
fault.
What did I get wrong? Oh, I got it's not extra. I didn't erase. I didn't erase. You gave it. You gave it.
Oh.
It was A.
How was it wrong?
Oh.
You got the only. I don't know.
The half,
Oh,
the
so it was
half
A.
credit
Yeah.
question?
Maybe I should repeat it. Oh, he does. Yeah. Oh, we just do half.
Nominal rate.
Like, how do you do? He did 2.5
Yes,
it.
you did
The
divide
relative
it.
max.
Okay.
So
He did. He did one
How do you
point.
guys do that?
So I can.
I got the easiest part wrong.
What's this?
No, that's what you did.
And then so I was gonna say A,
What?
divide that by A,
Last question.
Yeah, this is the
and then you do
I
C.
love this graphic calculator.
That's
That's
not.
not.
Do you do like this?
A, so one
It's
S
multiple of the same.
Oh, I mean, that's part of like having to work. Cause so R, you're saying R
Good
right?
job, Peter.
Right. Okay. Where you have B.
I'm on section 3 already. You know what? Get ready.
Okay, what?
Do you though? No. Exactly.
All right. So this one you actually have to divide.
What'd you get?
Six.
Six?
For 4, 5, and 6, you actually need to divide each other. For what other terms I got 9?
Well, didn't you say you wanted the middle one? So for 2 dash 7
For
3. Yeah, 7. You get 4c squared plus 6.
Yes. I don't think she's like 14. All right. I'm doing number 6.
It was 1350.
I didn't do number 4. You even said number 4.
Alright, you guys, I'm gonna hand out these ones. Please leave them out on your desk for a little bit, cause I have to come around and give you a correction form to match it. So just have it out, so when I come around, I know what to do.
We didn't even do number 11.
Yeah, so did yesterday. I'm being bullied by Peter.
I don't know
He
where.
wants to tell me. You forget it. He bullied me.
You want break break? It
What?
actually is in the schedule.
Joining
I
the
thought it said
Oh yeah.
I got more wrong from the multiple choice than I did.
Okay, so you're gonna have to
I
have
would
your
have
D
taken that,
grade
Peter.
I
because
think
you
I
weren't
already.
part of your D grade that day.
No, my baseball did.
Thank you.
I told him I got
So
20 out of 52.
Oh, I know January. January 23rd. Just walk by.
What did I do?
What?
I get my license one day before you. Yeah, I get my
I
couldn't get my license. I had to get a new one through the DMV.
A plus 2.
Yeah, I was
Plus
So I had an A
on
minus
top
10
this one.
plus
and then
20 over
like
10.
for Christmas and everything they're like so I was gonna do it over Christmas break, but I don't know how to do it. I was lazy. It was 4.
Give him the
No, you don't think I need to.
You know, we're
Oh yeah, yeah.
So I divided it right from that.
No, yeah, that's
Oh, she's not an example. Please send us
This one where I was 0. Not turn A.
Bro, why A? That's where I use. So it's A plus 2. I mean A
Which one
squared
is
minus
worth 2?
A.
Well, I'm
Divided
actually
by.
Sorry, which
I
one's worth
literally
3?
put
Well, I know.
yeah. You have 4 there and I put how I got it. You gotta change it. I'm just like it was just 1. I'm like, my bad.
Why am I being censored?
I don't know.
That'd be alright.
I forgot why I got there.
Just take you.
Yes.
Okay.
So you
Like this here
Is A squared.
A squared and 2x.
How was the last quiz with that?
No, and then a squared.
Well, by the way, was it 8?
No, I'm fine because
Or
I got
Yeah.
everything right.
and a squared plus b squared. And then 7.
No, I didn't even. This correction is
So
complete.
then A M I A.
Oh,
This should be.
I already failed
I
it.
wrote
Yeah.
that.
Yes, X and then you bring down negative.
Oh.
My niece says
It's
yeah.
like bingo all over again.
And then A
Look at
goes
that.
into.
What does that mean?
Greatness.
Wait, so A
Look
goes
at that.
into A.
Minus
Well, yeah, it's
Negative. Oh.
And I got 96.
No, don't worry. like, wait,
So if I
like
use
we
the
drop
top
like
part,
100?
then I have to do it again, right? Or is it
No,
just
you
A
cannot.
minus
You
10?
can't do it anymore.
Oh.
It's gonna be A minus
It's gonna be
10.
27
Right,
back
Ethan.
up.
But
No, she's gonna put it
and
in
in
at
addition,
27, so we probably
you
should
can
use
do A
26.
plus 2.
And then cover his
Alright,
face.
bring it down here.
Yeah, this is making me
One.
mad. I only have to make like
Negative
one
That's what she
mistake
-1.
a day
said.
too.
Continue, because
Dude,
5 equals 2.
this
Continue.
makes me mad to look at it.
Why does your face look like that? Tell me that's not
Fucking math
I
sound
just
amazing.
I just forgot my number one priority.
But yeah, this, let me see.
Wait, what did we have? What are the skipping
I think
for exam?
14 to 13
Yeah.
plus 5 plus the square root
Got all
equals
that
9.
juicy work.
Was formation
Why do you
of
remember
14.
this?
I thought it was because I did
How do you
so
remember like
bad.
what the chapter
You,
was?
where's Bastian?
Where do you come up with you think I really do
Because
that?
I was
Bastian
very bad at
lies.
math.
Bastian
I
lies.
do.
What's this? What?
He just said he was helping me out.
Oh, sorry, what'd you say?
It was me.
Oh.
Yeah, why did you ask me?
Wait, what?
What? What did I say?
You really suck at
No, I know what I said, but
I
Stop
said
being devious, Lily.
I
Don't
was like,
forget if you got
then she's a
100,
dud.
if you get 100, you gotta make sure you fill out the top part, even if you got 100, okay?
I go, so it should this was this one was like A part. So you write D.
Oh, botany is so easy. It's just memorizing the formulas.
Oh yeah.
Well, I found it very statistically challenging.
I didn't use
red.
it.
How'd you guys do?
Yeah, actually, yeah. I got all the yeah,
But
actually.
no,
Chicken
That's
breast
exactly
chicken.
no, I don't know, you know, if you got any notes.
Did you remember me,
Stop
Steven?
croaking!
With the star.
Okay, try
Red also correct.
bigger one goes in the thing
Hot.
next.
So Z minus 1.
I know.
Yes.
I did
Does
the
anyone need
math.
a quiz correction form?
He had 2 X's and a
Oh yeah.
symbol. And then like 2 C's and A and B.
Okay, but I'm up.
Wait,
Wait.
3 by 1.
He does talk. He does the work, right? He's probably
So
like
according to what?
Yeah, he's super friendly. Like, he goes like, oh, you gotta do this work.
according to
Like, this
MS
is math.
Plus.
It's 2.5.
I don't know what he was doing.
Right.
Is this the
Got
bathroom?
this.
4.5.
Is it cool?
Yeah, this is the bathroom. Yeah. You can put it over there, on that
You have like
table.
8
I have one AP class and all
Z
online.
goes into this
I
one.
don't know if that explains.
This is
Oh
online.
no, you're
This is
right.
way difficult.
Oh,
So
I
I
only have
A
Pascal.
that's
Well, what is wig?
I was stupid.
So
Well, it
A
means like
goes to
the better I do, the higher
it was really
will
weird.
be points I get.
Multiply.
So like since it's
So
C,
Z goes Z.
class class if I
So
have a
Z
B,
equals. So
it's
it's
the
gonna
same as
be
having an
what?
A and numeric
So
errors.
it's gonna be what?
And
So Z minus
We
so
we're just talking
Z squared. Then
Going to
5.2.
be two.
This just now?
Then it's gonna be two.
Are you serious?
Where's your finger?
You get B.
Oh, I thought you went like this.
C minus